just my report real quick, the staff report.
Yeah, we'll kind of start at the bottom. All right, it is 4 p.m. It's Wednesday, July 27th. It is our Heber Light and Power Board of Directors regular meeting. We need to excuse Chairman Alan McDonald and Representative Jeff Bradshaw from our meeting. They've asked to be excused today, and we are waiting for Jeff Smith to have a full quorum. But we're going to start with the items that do not need a quorum, that are just updates and recommendations and reports. But first of all, did everybody read the letter that came to Travis Broadhead? I thought that was pretty awesome. I think that's pretty nice that that we actually are way ahead on the safety and could actually teach the classes. So I thought that was quite a compliment to Travis as well as the company. So I think that needs to be noted, that letter was sent. And then also the thank you for the donation to the Utah Wings out at the airport. So
I got a question. Do you, and are we required to post this meeting on the Utah public notice website?
Yes.
And it is?
mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know how many of you saw that article in the paper that the state auditor ran, and there were several groups in the county that weren't. The railroad, Heber Valley Railroad, isn't posting their minutes or their meetings.
We talked about that in our board meeting, and they're going to start to do that. It's I think it was just more or less an oversight that they didn't realize that they needed to do that, and so they're going to come into compliance ASAP. And
it's easy enough to do. It's just not aware.
Yeah, and so now that they've become aware of it, they were sent a letter. It's like, oh yeah, we definitely will do that. So that's they're on board for that. All right, so we're going to kind of just skip around on our agenda, and we can talk. Let's do the general manager's report. You want to do that, Jason?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll go into UAMPS first. On the carbon-free power project update, there was a motion and approval to select a site up at the INEL National Engineering Laboratory up in Idaho. I think it was site 17, if I'm going by memory. My notes aren't real good. It's
Okay, Jeff's here, so we now actually have an official quorum. Jason's given us his update. Sorry, I just have to be city council at 6, so we just got started, just barely. Okay.
So this site is located just a little bit north of like Blackfoot, Idaho. And it met all of the kind of fatal flaw requirements. There's water there. It's near transmission, and there is good roadways into that area.
So infrastructure's already kind of there. That's good.
That was one of the two sites that was recommended by INEL, Department of Energy, and the consultants that UAMPS had.
I'm happy to hear that it was recommended. I'd always thought that we pick the site and then we had to go back and say, is this good? But it worked the way I think it should have worked.
I think INEL kind of found like 5 sites, it seems like, that would all work from their perspective. And then the consultant took it from there and narrowed it down to 2. And one of them was slightly better due to water, I think. So
That's good.
Doug Hunter has been working on getting the project fully subscribed. He has been in discussions with DOE, Department of Energy, on their loads, both at the INEL site and some other national laboratory sites. It sounds like it's just in the discussion stages. There's been no commitment of any kind by them at all. And I think it's worth noting that currently UAMPS is, throwing a number to new scale that's around $61 a megawatt is where they really need to be price-wise for the project. And the last report that I got is new scales at around 80, so there is
So
still
they
some
gotta scale back.
separation there
Yeah.
as far as where we're actually at on, the price of it at the end. Who knows? It's
Doug's still
so
pushing
early in the process that it's, I really don't know how they're even coming up with some of these numbers. Site's just been selected. There's still a lot of vetting as far as what costs are going to be associated with it. Gobs of water still need to be purchased. And none of it's been approved by the Nuclear Energy Regulatory Commission either.
Right, there's all those hoops they're gonna have to jump through, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. So those are just projections by all means. So
Okay.
on the Hunter plant, the 110th Circuit appeal, and Joe can correct me if I got my notes wrong on this, but the 110th Circuit appeal for the SIP ruling is due by September 5th. And nobody really knows where that appeal is going to lead. Although it was reported that the Fifth Circuit stayed on the Texas Regional Haze ruling. So if the 10th, Joe piped in, if the 10th reads that argument, maybe there will be a stay on this one, but the 10th is different than the 5th, so I don't know, do you?
And if they disagree, then it could go to the United States Supreme Court, because that's what the Supreme Court looks for, is if the circuits disagree about a point. So it'll be interesting to see. BioOrgia came in and presented a tolling agreement at a board meeting a couple months ago. Interestingly enough, we got the last updated numbers from them last Tuesday. And on Monday, Kirk called me and said BioOrgia Energy Systems is no longer a company.
Oh.
And that they had been absorbed by the parent company, BioOrgia, and all of the business that was done by them had either been absorbed or discontinued, so their proposal had been pulled from us. Smith Power Products, who was working with them, contacted me immediately after that and wanted to set up a meeting for later this week to discuss next steps now that BioOrgia is out of the picture. Soda Lake, the geothermal project that was also presented here, Scott Reese's CERT project. That was presented in the UAMPS Resource Committee meeting, and UAMPS was given the direction to pursue a deal with CERC and see if there was any room on price on that project. So I'll keep you updated on that. I wanted to ask, we had a good turnout by the board on the Jordanelle tour, and just wanted to ask if there's any questions that you had following that tour about that project.
How much do we generate off of that? Again, remind me how much.
Total capacity is 12 megawatts. If all conditions are right, we can almost hit 13 megawatts. Right now, when I left the plant, I think we are generating at 9 megawatts right now. So it's all run of the river, and it can be up and down. We were at 12 megawatts, I think, for about 2 weeks. Wouldn't you say, Jake?
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks.
During high water?
Yeah, it was during high water and a river flush. So I think those two things played into it.
It was a very educational tour. It was fun. It was fun to see that, and you know, we don't realize it's right here in our backyard, but we're really lucky to be able to generate as much of our own power and
Mhm.
from
It was a
these resources.
great deal to get that plant.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, thanks for attending. It is a good project, and they've been a very, very good partner. Central Utah has throughout the whole process up there. So,
Well, thanks for organizing it because it was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
and then the last thing I got to report on is we are in the process of reviewing and modifying our customer rules. It's a very lengthy document, and it goes into all of our rules. We hope to have that completed and to the board in September. So, just so we don't blindside you in September with a big packet of customer rules for approval, we are going through them, and we'll hope to get a staff finished draft to you on September meeting. So, and that's my report.
Okay, perfect. So we'll skip back up to the top now, and we'll go. The consent agenda has the board minutes for June 22nd, the financials for June 2016, and the warrants for June 2016. So if there's no discussion on that, or if there is discussion on that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent items as listed.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Bob?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Okay, perfect. Thanks. All right. Second is the approval of our second quarter 2016 distributions to the members, Resolution 2016-06. Are there any comments on that one?
I make the motion that we accept that resolution providing for distribution to members from distributable income.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, Kendall?
Aye.
Aye.
You mentioned as distributable income, is this the same every time, or it depends on what's
amount is-
excess in that
The
quarter?
amount's the same.
Amount's the same. The rules require that every quarter, I basically say whether or not there was income sufficient to pay that dividend. If there are, then you have the right to award that to the three owning entities.
And it's generally planned that there is, so
It's budgeted.
it's just a formality more or less to follow the rules.
There have been periods in the past where there wasn't distributable income, but in the recent past, we've done pretty good on that.
And how much is that? Heber's?
It's 75,000 a quarter. Heber gets 75% of that, so 62.5 or something like that.
75%. Midway gets
12.
12.5.
12.
And Charleston gets 12.5.
and Charleston 12.5.
Be in your finances.
Yeah, I'm sure it's there.
Every once in a while, we trade Heber and Charleston so that we get sort of,
I don't think that
We wish.
I'll bet
Better not let that happen, Jeff. You'll be in trouble.
I'll bet that doesn't happen.
Okay, so since we were sort of in the middle of a motion, do you want to?
I don't have any, I'm in
No, we
favor.
voted.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
Did we get all the way voted
Yeah.
through?
I'm
Okay.
Good, yeah.
All right, perfect. So
If
let's.
somebody seconded it, I guess.
Okay, so we need to review and discuss of our RE from Pender's cost of service study. And there's a copy of that for those of you who need one. Jason, do you
Yeah,
have
I
anything
have.
you want to?
Yeah, I don't think we need approval on this because it was approved in the budget, when the budget was approved. This study, if we go to the proposed scope, right on the first page. What I really talked to Pender about in this study is kind of looking at the rate and the rate increase and demand charge specifically to general service customers, to take a look at it and make sure that that the numbers came in like we planned and we don't have any cross subsidy going on between rate classes within that study or within our current rates. We've had probably the biggest complaint from that rate case has come from very small commercial that have 4 kW demand, 6 kW demand, so very small demand in that 30 kW demand rate class, and they're not using any kilowatt hours, so literally they have gotten sometimes 400% increases. I mean, if they weren't using any kilowatt hours, they turned a compressor on in their shop, hit 4 kW demand, no kilowatt hours billed. It looks like they're from what they paid before, which was minimum type bill, to where they are today. It was a huge increase. There are systems out there that do a demand waiver for a small incremental demand. I asked Pender to take a look at that and see what that would do to other rate classes if we put a waiver in, and where that waiver should be set at. So he'll get the data, look at all the demand, see how many customers are being affected at certain levels, try to find that sweet spot, and then run the numbers to see how much revenue the company loses by waiving that demand and where that redistribution goes to others to collect that revenue. So that's part of the study that we're proposing with Mr. Pender. Another one that, this is really kind of at board's discretion too, but I did ask him to take a look at doing kind of a pilot program for time of use rates during all of our public hearings and through the last rate case. That seemed to come up quite a bit from the people that came to those public meetings, was time of use rates, and when are you going to introduce time of use rates? They can tell you now we have the billing system that can do time of use rates. We have the metering system that can do time of use rates. So this might be the time to introduce some type of an opt-in type pilot program for time of use rates. So I asked him to take a look at that as well. And then the other one is net metering. I mean, we're just getting blasted by solar right now. It's not that we're hooking up that many solar customers, but we are just getting blasted with telephone calls asking about it. A lot of customer service times being spent on solar customers. And we are, for every 30 phone calls, would you say, Bar, we get 1 or 2 applications. and that count is going up. By the time we dump the data to Pender on this, I'm guessing that we'll have close to 100 of these net metering customers, which is enough of a sample size that I think he can really study what the actual costs are on the customer service side for these net metering customers, as well as if other ratepayers are subsidizing what we're paying them out in our policy. I think we needed to get our policies in line before we really sent this information to Pender, because he's going to want to take those policies and look at how we're paying them in order to, do an accurate rate analysis on it. So, we're ready to get this thing kicked off, and it is in the budget. This study was approved in the budget, so I don't think we need approval, but it's direction from the board to go ahead and get Mr. Pender working on.
Is it approved at this amount, or have you added tasks that are going to raise that cost a bit?
It is. It's approved at that amount.
Okay.
And so we're looking at about 9 weeks.
Yeah, so what the plan is going forward is we get this stuff to him, probably by that September time frame, maybe mid-August, September, and then let him crank on numbers and come back and not address if there's any rate adjustment or anything. Then as we're working with him, we'd kind of know we could get that built into a budget if the board so chooses. If the board decides, let's just go with what we got, let's get into next year and deal with it, then we'll have this all completed by the time we hit like February of next year and be able to start having the public hearings and make the adjustments that this will definitely kick out. I'm sure it's going to kick out some adjustments.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
All right.
Do you need the Pender thing?
Oh, what was the amount on that?
2,900.
Okay, we're above budget there.
That's what I wanted, if you've added a few things like the solar stuff that maybe added a little cost to it.
yeah, that could be. What did we budget, Bart?
12,000.
12,000. So I can go back to him too, and we can carve some of that off. This is his proposal.
Is this,
for
these rates are
everything
per
I
hour rate,
talked
is that
about.
what,
Yeah, it's 150 now.
150 an hour?
The time before he did a standard, just a regular rate study, he did add in there the demand portion of it. And that one was in at 12K, and then we had the impact fee in at like 18 that time. So when we did the budget, knowing we was going to do it, we just put it in around the 12K. So with the time of use, as well as the demand forgiveness and these other adders, that's probably what drove that rate up. So
Is it worth adjusting the budget to so that we can get it all done at one time? Is there money available to do that? Is it possible?
there's areas in which we're not going to be spending the budgeted amount.
Okay.
That as far as us exceeding our annual expenditure amount, this would not at all even threaten that. So
Those added studies are probably needed.
Well, you've got to have them to get the information that we need, and we're,
Yeah.
like Jason said, we're being pushed on
This
the
is
solar
all.
end.
This is literally all feedback. I mean, I did skip over one that I added, and that is the implementation of billing load aggregation. We do have several of our commercial accounts that have multiple meters on one campus. And so, you know, you got a customer that's now paying demand on 3 meters because he's got 3 saws, you know, 300 or 400 feet apart. Eventually that customer is going to aggregate those meters. It's just going to, the return on investments there, we've talked about it with them. It's just by looking at that and seeing if we can not make the customer invest that capital in just consolidating his meters to 1 meter so he's only paying 1 demand, and we can do it on the billing system. We think it's a good service to provide. I mean, but it's, you know, it's...
So he'd still stay on 3 meters, but you'd roll it into 1.
The adjustment would be made on the back end.
Yeah.
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 Rather than
We would
taking
just
2
take, we would
meters out.
take those 3 meters that are on that campus, and he'd pay the demand on the highest demand of those 3 and then still pay all the kilowatt hours.
Mm-hmm.
On all of them.
Our new billing system will do that. And so it's just a look to see, you know, is that something that we could provide? Because eventually that customer is going to aggregate them, go to 1 master meter, and then sub-panel it out from there because, you know,
Because
he's
of the
paying
demand
demand
charge.
on 3 meters.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's just, you know, one of those things that we need to look at, see what the revenue impact is of that, knowing full well that it's going to trickle in anyway because customers are just going to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think we've always kind of been a company that's had really good customer service, and I think that we want to continue
Yeah.
to move in that direction. So if we can do it where it benefits the company or benefits the customer, but doesn't have a huge negative impact to the company, you know, we just need to see what that balance is. But until you study it and look at it, nobody knows. So you've got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
And if we've got the ability to do it, we might as well figure it out why we, you know, because we've got the ability to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the question then, where this is higher than budgeted, do we need to vote on it now or just adjust it at the end of the year on the budget?
I think we have room in the professional services budget. It'd just take away from something else.
Well, like you said, there's room to adjust in the budget at the end of the year when we.
When it comes to budget adjustments, it's best to, I mean, if it was a big item that came up like right now, then we'd look at amending it. Otherwise, I would suggest we write it to the end of the year, and if we're
And adjust it then.
looking at coming out of, being out of line with the budget, then we do an amended budget at the end of the year.
Okay.
But as of right now, I don't foresee any reason why we would not be able to bear the
Okay.
additional
We've
cost.
approved the study basically, so.
So basically, we're just saying to give you the go-ahead to get started, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And just so you guys know, Pender and Associates is a single source provider. That was approved by a previous board of directors. But I'm also getting a number from URS. I think you went with me. It's that Mark Beauchamp that spoke at that one meeting. He is going to give us another number too.
Okay.
And
For the
so-
same thing.
Yes, and if his number comes in with the same type of scope, closer to budget, then
We'll go with them.
we'd go with them.
Okay.
So
Well, great. I appreciate you.
We know Pender's work. He does good work for us.
Pender does really good work.
Did he,
Yes.
was that a bid process? Did we put out an RFP to get him?
You
or
know,
how
I
did that
wasn't
work?
really a part of that. I think that was all done prior to us settling with Rocky Mountain Power because Pender came in and did a lot of work prior to all of that attorney work. He did a lot of the number work prior to taking over those Timber Lakes and Midway bench accounts.
And we did send it out.
We did.
We talked about Champ, and I forget if there was one other one that called.
Yeah, I know Beauchamp bid it.
Yeah.
How often does the law require, can you use consultant once you have one for several studies, or how often do you have to
Well,
rebid?
I was actually, it's just like the auditor, if we're on our third year with him, it's probably wouldn't be a bad idea to take it out to a formal bid next year.
Yeah, you should every couple of years on an auditor, maybe the same. But if this other guy submit one,
Yeah, he is gonna submit.
Yeah, the thing that's hard is, Pender knows so much better business,
yeah, he already,
he's way up to speed.
Yeah,
so-
it's one of those where, you've done this data dump and people get familiar with your rates, and somebody else has to start from scratch, and they either have to take it and not make much the first couple times before they really start being able to crank it out quickly.
I think there's value as long as it's following the rules to use the same one for several.
Yeah, like I
Several
say,
goals. It's like
the
an auditor.
reason I think URS might come in competitively is because UAMPS bid them for the whole membership, and UAMPS did an RFP for this type of work for the whole membership, and URS got that, and so we would get that pricing by being a UAMPS member.
Right.
Isn't Pender
And-
in Florida?
Pender's in Florida.
URS would be local.
They have a couple of offices. I think their closest office is in the Arizona area.
So there's not a real advantage. They're like Salt Lake on either of them then.
No. So,
Okay.
How familiar would URS be with our stuff where they're doing other UAMPS members? Would that help them?
they'd be very familiar because they did our work for the wholesale portfolio piece when we were doing the feed-in tariff pilot and establishing what we could pay feed-in tariff customers. And so they've already worked with us on the wholesale portfolio piece. And so where they would kind of be out of their element with us is on our distribution rates.
Yeah. Let's see what comes in.
Okay, so yeah, once Jason gets that other information, then we'll just give him the go-ahead to take whoever has the best rate and get started on this, and then we'll get back.
Whatever fits the best into the budget is
Yeah.
what we'll go with.
Okay, perfect. All right, Facilities Committee meeting update. Who wants to give that?
Well, Bart and
Bart.
Colleen were there. I can go over what we discussed, and then if you guys want to add to it, feel free. Facilities Committee met. We went over the strategic plan, and
Bob was gonna take it home and do a fine tooth
Yeah,
comb on it.
Bob's gotta be careful what he commits to. I mean,
Bob was going to come back and get with me and talk